Hello, it's Amy, and I'm back again in my cozy reading corner in the depths of October with the Journal of Emily Shore. And this is page 150, the year 1836. She is 17 years old and headed back to Woodbury. And so she says, we proceeded by coach only as far as Shefford, and then took a chaise direct for Woodbury, which is 13 miles off. The evening was very calm and lovely. Close to Potton, on the Woodbury side of it, we were met by Papa, who had been waiting for us for some time. We were so happy to see him. He got up into the chaise and had taken the trouble to bring us, in a little basket, some excellent figs and peaches from our own garden. It was now dark, and we did not reach Woodbury till after 8 o'clock, and I must say I was very glad to see home again. September 9th, Friday. Mr. Astle called. Amongst other things, Papa and he conversed about the new poor law, which seems to be generally approved of throughout the country, although there is unfortunately a considerable opposition arising. It neither is nor was a party question. The bill was passed by the Whig government, but is owed much to the support of Sir Robert Peel and the Duke of Wellington, and was very popular in both houses with all parties. Mr. Astle, for one, who is a high Tory, speaks of it with the highest approbation. He says it has already produced astonishing effects everywhere. In Gamlingay, for instance, the rates are already diminished 2/3, and at Tempsford it is occasioning even a moral improvement in the population. If it goes on working this way, says Mr. Astle, there will, in a few years, be not a pauper in the country. This bill is one of the most important political changes which had been made within my recollection, amounting, as Papa said, almost to a revolution among the laboring classes. September 12, Monday. Intending to become very weather-wise, I am taking daily notes of the appearance of the sky at sunset, with, of course, the weather every day. I continue also noting down the barometer and thermometer twice a day, and I intend, for the future, to do it 3 times, that is, at 8:30 a.m., at 1 p.m., and at 8 p.m. September 18, Sunday. Some interesting conversation passed when Papa was with us this evening, principally about Dr. Arnold of Rugby, Dr. Hampden, and Mr. Keble. Before Papa came in, Mamma and Aunt Mary began about Dr. Arnold, who is a prodigious favourite of ours. Mamma highly extolled his sermons, and then expressed her opinion of himself, and said how, when he preached, the school was so quiet and attentive that a pin might be heard to fall. Hereupon Aunt Mary broke out, saying that Dr. Arnold was quite odious now, his character was quite gone down, and such had been his conduct to one of the boys that numbers were now withdrawn from his school. He had acted, she said, quite brutally, and had struck the boy himself. As I knock my camera, I apologize. Had struck the boy himself. Here followed a long argument, Mamma strenuously maintaining the character of Dr. Arnold for perfect conscientiousness, disinterestedness, and earnest anxiety about his school. Repeating what Mr. H. Reynolds told us as coming from an exceedingly bigoted high Tory, that he almost lived on his knees, and what we heard from Mr. P. Payne, son to Sir Peter Payne, that instead of recreating himself on Sunday, he spent that day in writing sermons for his boys. All this Aunt Mary could not deny, but kept her opinion about the business of young Marshall, though Mamma reminded her that it was but an ex parte statement, and also blamed his violence in politics, which certainly is to be regretted. Mamma recommended her to read his sermons. Aunt Mary said that by Grandpa's advice she had begun the first volume, but not finding it interesting, she had left it off, and having now a feeling against him, she did not intend to continue it. However, when Mamma read to her one from his 3rd volume, she agreed that it was very excellent. Having now got on the subject of party spirit and party violence, we came to Dr. Hampden. Here again Mamma and Aunt Mary differed, and when Papa came in, Mamma called on Papa to speak his opinion, which he did at some length. Mamma first asked whether, after all, his persecutors knew what his opinions really were. Papa replied that they did not. Socinianism, he says, is a charge quite given up now. The utmost they can accuse him of is the making use of expressions which they do not approve of. and accordingly in the bigoted popish spirit now pervading the university. They think him fit for the faggot. That it was an indiscreet appointment, Papa allows, for he before lays under some suspicion of heterodoxy. But still, the whole business of his persecution and the spirit in which it has been carried on is a shame and a disgrace to Oxford. Nobody denies, not even his enemies, that he is a most worthy, pious, and amiable man. His writings Papa has not seen, but whatever his opinions were, he has been treated in a most brutal and unchristian manner. As to Dr. Arnold and the affair of young Marshall, when Papa heard that Mr. Arnold had been said to act brutally, he declared that no charge could possibly be more absurd or unfounded, and that none who knew him would venture to charge Dr. Arnold with any approach to brutality. The affair was this, that in the weekly examination one of the masters, by a mistake, accused Marshall of some fault which he had before committed, but of which he was not then guilty. The boy denied it, but was not believed, and was punished accordingly. It might have been an error of judgment in Dr. Arnold to take the word of the master and not that of the boy, but it is what is invariably done. As to the punishment, the beating, knocking, etc., which was inflicted not by Dr. Arnold or by his ushers, but by one of the monitors, it might or might not have been wrong, but it is done 100,000 times in every public school. The statement of the father in the newspaper undoubtedly contains falsehoods, and the whole business has been taken up as a party matter. Dr. Arnold has been calumniated and misrepresented by his enemies in the grossest manner. The John Bull, whose business it is to propagate lies, is not ashamed to assert that he says the very reverse of what he actually does say, giving the very word of the parodied quotation, and then to hold him up to an exhortation, calling on all parents who regard the religion and morality of their children to avoid sending them to Rugby, the only school in the kingdom where religion is neglected. Now, at Eton, the only true religious instruction ever received from Dr. Keats was that on Sunday evening, when they were called in for a quarter of an hour to hear a sermon of Blair's, gabbled over, and at the same time the Greek and Latin exercises were given out for the next day. Yet John Bull takes no notice of this and makes no appeal to parents about the religion of their children. As another specimen of party spirit, no outcry is made against Keble for denying the divine authority of the Christian Sabbath, although he notoriously and openly makes no distinction between it and weekdays, and will play at cricket on Sunday evening. This I find is a mistake, and this is a note here. This I find is a mistake. The fact really is that Keble and his father encouraged noisy sports among the lower orders on Sunday evenings, apart from the unpleasant turn given by the words, noisy sports and low orders. This is a very harmless fact. Keble, no doubt, thought cricket better for his parishioners than the alehouse. But there is a vast commotion when the same doctrine and theory is held by Whately and others of that party, although he does not adopt it in practice and considers a man of the established church conscientiously bound to keep it holy. Such is the substance of the conversation in which I took great interest. September 21st, Wednesday. In the evening came our long-expected pupil, Lord Ipswich. It is always a matter of anxiety on the arrival of a pupil to know what sort of subject he will prove. There is nothing at all unfavorable in this young man's appearance, and we hear much that is good of him from his father and mother. He is tall, erect, and thin, very light-haired, his eyes blue, and his complexion florid. Papa says he is very like his father, whom, as well as the Duke of Grafton, he has formerly seen. September 23rd, Friday. I now really pride myself on my weather wisdom. I can always, by observing the sunset, accurately predict the weather of the following day. I trust the sunset even more than the barometer. The sunset this evening was the most glorious I ever beheld. As I have described in my registering book, I shall say less about it here. At the moment the sun, an orb of gold, was setting the western horizon, was glowing with a fiery coppery pink, sprinkled with small, rich purple clouds of surpassing brilliance. But after he was quite set, the scene was far nobler. The whole western sky was one mass of various colors, red, lemon, orange, pink, lilac, melting together and continually increasing in brightness. Then the light decreased in extent and amalgamated more and more, the western horizon glowing like a furnace, till no color remained but a belt of bloody scarlet, such as I have never seen before. This scarlet color contrasted strangely and harshly with the intense dark purple of the distances, a contrast which, if seen in a painting, would be pronounced very ugly and unnatural. In the earlier part of it, the eastern sky was blushing with curled and streaky clouds of a delicate pink, as if the sun was rising. Even Mr. Wells was struck by it and called out to Richard as he went by, "I say, Dickon, do come here, Dickon, and look at the sky. I never saw such an odd thing in my life." Richard, "It is most beautiful." Mr. Wells, "Beautiful? I don't call that beautiful. Why, it's our regular blood color." "I do not expect to lose any more teeth. They have never ached before, and I attribute their goodness to the constant use of charcoal, of which I have the highest opinion. So has Papa, who, having used charcoal daily ever since he was 8 years old, never had a toothache in his life, and never lost a tooth. When suffering with a tooth which has just been drawn, I found great and instantaneous relief from a very simple remedy prescribed in Chambers' Edinburgh Journal, where I read it 2.5 years ago. There is nothing but to put into the hollow of the tooth a wetted bit of cotton, dipped in an equal mixture of pounded alum and salt. And I think we will leave it there for today, because the next entry for September 24th is a little bit long. And so that's that for September 23rd, 1836.